When Olivia Reyes purchased an abandoned elementary school at a city auction for just $7,800, her entire life savings and a desperate attempt to solve her family's housing crisis, she never imagined that the forgotten documents locked in the principal's office vault would expose a decades-long government surveillance program that would ultimately lead to congressional hearings and the most sweeping intelligence reform in American history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The eviction notice had arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked between grocery store flyers and credit card offers, like it wasn't about to detonate Olivia Reyes' entire life. 30 days. That's all the time she had to somehow find affordable housing in a market that seemed designed specifically to exclude single mothers working 2 jobs just to stay afloat. Final notice of lease termination, the document announced, in bold, impersonal type. The corporate landlord had sold the entire apartment complex to a luxury developer. All tenants were required to vacate within 30 days. No exceptions, no extensions, no consideration for the human lives being disrupted. Olivia stood in the cramped kitchen of the 2-bedroom apartment she'd called home for the past 3 years, the paper trembling slightly in her hands. Outside the window, she could hear her 10-year-old daughter Maya laughing as she played with neighborhood friends in the communal courtyard. The sound twisted something painful in Olivia's chest. How was she supposed to tell Maya they would have to leave the only stable home she'd known since the divorce? The timing couldn't have been worse. After years of working night shifts as an ER nurse while taking online classes, Olivia had finally completed her nurse practitioner certification just last month. The career advancement meant a significant pay increase was coming, but not for another 6 weeks when her new position officially began. The eviction would hit precisely during that financial limbo, when her savings were depleted from certification, fees, and before her new salary kicked in. Olivia made herself a cup of coffee and opened her laptop, pulling up rental listings with a sense of dread. The numbers on the screen might as well have been written in a foreign language for all the sense they made to her budget reality. Studio apartments were renting for more than she currently paid for their 2-bedroom. Most required income, at least 3 times the monthly rent. Credit scores above 720. First and last month's rent, plus security deposit up front. Financial barriers that might as well have been fortress walls for a single mother still rebuilding her financial life after leaving an emotionally abusive marriage 5 years ago. "Mom, are you okay?" Maya stood in the kitchen doorway, wind-blown and flushed from playing outside. At 10, she was already perceptive enough to read the tension in her mother's posture, the worry lines forming between her eyebrows. Olivia quickly minimized the apartment listings. "Just grown-up stuff, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." But Maya's eyes had already spotted the notice on the counter. "Are we moving again?" she asked, her voice small. Olivia sighed. There was no point hiding it. Maya had developed a 6th sense about housing insecurity during the turbulent year after the divorce, when they'd moved 3 times, sleeping on friends' couches and staying in a women's shelter for 6 weeks before Olivia had finally secured their current apartment. "The building's been sold," Olivia explained, gesturing for Maya to sit beside her. "We might need to find a new place, but I'm working on it." "But I like it here," Maya said, the slight tremble in her voice breaking Olivia's heart. "My friends are here. My school is here. My tree is here." Your tree was a tall maple visible from Maya's bedroom window. She'd adopted it 3 years ago when they moved in, documenting its seasonal changes for a long-running science project that had won recognition at last year's district science fair. "I know, sweetheart. I like it here too." Olivia pulled her daughter close. "But you remember what we always say about the Reyes girls, right?" Maya nodded against her shoulder. "We're adaptable, like tardigrades." The comparison to the nearly indestructible microscopic creatures had become their family motto after Maya had learned about them in science class. Tiny organisms that could survive in the most extreme conditions by going dormant until the environment improved. That's right, adaptable and tough, and we've got each other, which makes us even stronger. After tucking Maya into bed that night, Olivia returned to her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her exhausted face as she systematically worked through every housing possibility. Apartment listings, extended stay hotels, family shelters, friends with spare rooms. Each option seemed worse than the last. Too expensive, too temporary, too disruptive to Maya's education and well-being. At 1:17 a.m., bleary-eyed and desperate, Olivia found herself scrolling through municipal auction listings, tax-foreclosed properties, abandoned buildings, and distressed real estate that the city was selling to recoup unpaid taxes. Most were derelict houses requiring massive renovation or vacant lots in dangerous neighborhoods. But then she saw it. Former Oakwood Elementary School, minimum bid $5,000. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The listing included only 2 grainy photos of a brick building that had clearly seen better days, along with a brief description. 34,000 SQF former elementary school on 3/8 acres. Vacant since district consolidation in 2012. Zoning allows for residential conversion. Significant renovation required. No utilities active. Property sold as is. Olivia nearly scrolled past it. What would she do with an abandoned school? But something made her pause. She clicked on the property details and learned that Oakwood Elementary was located just outside the city limits in a rural area about 40 minutes from their current apartment. The school had closed when the district consolidated, and the property had languished in legal limbo for years before finally being released for auction. A wild, impossible idea began forming in her mind. The building had classrooms that could be converted to bedrooms. It would have multiple bathrooms, a cafeteria that could become a kitchen, a gymnasium, library space, maybe even an apartment where the administrative offices had been, and all on almost 4 acres of land. It was absurd. She was a single mother with limited renovation skills, not a real estate developer. And yet, what if? What if the minimum bid remained low because no developers wanted a property so far from urban development? What if this was the only option that fit her budget? What if this crazy idea was actually their best chance at housing security? Olivia checked her savings account, 7,140 thrals, 52s. Every dollar she'd managed to save over 3 years of brutal budgeting, extra shifts, and coupon clipping frugality. Money that had been earmarked for emergencies and eventually a down payment on a real home someday. But wasn't this housing crisis the exact emergency she'd been saving for? She stayed up until 4 a.m. researching everything she could find about purchasing auction properties, converting commercial buildings to residential use, and the specific history of Oakwood Elementary. The school had been built in 1963 during the education expansion of the baby boom era. It had served the rural community for nearly 50 years before declining enrollment and budget cuts had forced its closure. According to the county inspector's report, the structure was sound, though the utilities had been turned off years ago and there was significant cosmetic damage from neglect. The auction was scheduled for Friday morning, just 3 days away. Olivia called in sick to her Thursday night shift, something she almost never did, to attend the auction first thing Friday morning. She arranged for Maya to go to a friend's house after school, in case the auction ran long. "This is insane," she told her reflection in the bathroom mirror as she got ready Friday morning. You're about to spend your entire life savings on an abandoned school building that you've never even seen inside. But the alternative, homelessness or uprooting Maya from her school and friends to move to a distant, cheaper city, seemed equally impossible. At least this crazy plan offered the possibility of stability, of space, of a permanent solution rather than another temporary fix. The county courthouse was an imposing stone building in the city center, its steps already crowded with people. When Olivia arrived 30 minutes before the auction was scheduled to begin, she clutched her bidding registration paperwork and the certified check for $7,800, keeping a small buffer in her account for immediate expenses, and tried to look like she belonged among the developers and real estate investors in business, a tire who seemed to know each other and the process intimately. "First time?" asked an older woman with kind eyes, who noticed Olivia's nervous fidgeting. Olivia nodded. "That obvious, huh? We were all first-timers once," the woman said, introducing herself as Eleanor Diaz. "I've been coming to these auctions for 20 years. Started small, built up slowly. What are you looking at today?" "Oakwood Elementary," Olivia admitted, then immediately wondered if she shouldn't have revealed her interest. But Eleanor just nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting choice. It's been sitting vacant for ages. Too far out for most developers to bother with, and too big for most individual buyers. What are you planning to do with it?" "Live in it, actually," Olivia said, feeling slightly embarrassed by how outlandish it sounded when said aloud. "Convert part of it to living space for me and my daughter, maybe eventually renovate more of it as time and money allow." To her surprise, Eleanor didn't laugh. Creative thinking. Those old schools were built solid. Good bones, high ceilings, lots of natural light. Better construction than most new builds today. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Word of advice. Most of the developers here today are after the downtown properties. I doubt you'll have much competition for something that far out." Eleanor's prediction proved accurate. When Lot 17, Oakwood Elementary School, came up for auction, the room remained surprisingly quiet. The auctioneer called out the minimum, bid of $5,000, and Olivia raised her bidder card, heart pounding. $5,000 from bidder number 43. "Do I hear 5,500? A man in a suit at the front of the room raised his card casually. 5,500 from bidder 12. "Do I hear 6,000? Olivia raised her card. Again, feeling lightheaded, the bidding continued in $500 increments, but to Olivia's immense relief, the man in the suit dropped out at $6,500. One other bidder joined briefly, taking the price to $7,000 before also losing interest. $7,000 going once, going twice. The auctioneer paused, scanning the room for any last-minute bids. Olivia held her breath. "Sold to bidder 43 for $7,000. The sharp crack of the gavel made Olivia jump. Had that really just happened? Had she actually purchased an entire school building for less than the security deposit on most apartments in the city? The next hour passed in a blur of paperwork, signatures, and financial transactions. The county clerk explained that she would need to file for change of use permits if she intended to live in the building, but that the zoning already allowed for residential conversion. There might be additional requirements for health and safety, inspections before she could legally occupy the space, but those could be addressed in the coming weeks. By noon, Olivia Reyes, single mother, nurse, and now owner of a 34,000-square-foot former elementary school, was clutching a set of keys and a deed with her name on it. "Congratulations," Eleanor said, finding her in the courthouse hallway afterward. "That's quite an adventure you're embarking on." "I'm still not sure if I'm brilliant or crazy," Olivia admitted. "Sometimes the line between those is thinner than we think," Eleanor replied with a wink. "Here's my card. I've done some residential conversions over the years. Call me if you need advice or contractor recommendations." Olivia thanked her and headed straight to her car. She couldn't wait any longer. She had to see her new property immediately, even though she should have been heading to work for her afternoon shift. One quick call to swap with a co-worker, and she was free to drive the 40 minutes to what was now officially her property. Oakwood Elementary School sat at the end of a long, overgrown driveway surrounded by maple trees that had dropped their autumn leaves in a vibrant carpet of red and gold. The two-story brick building was larger than it had appeared in the auction photos, imposingly institutional, but with a certain mid-century charm in its clean lines and large windows. A faded sign still proclaimed "Home of the Oakwood Owls" above the main entrance. The parking lot was cracked, with weeds pushing through the asphalt, and ivy had begun climbing one side of the building. Many windows were dirty or covered with security boards, but none appeared to be broken. The grounds, once playgrounds and sports fields, had reverted to meadow, with wildflowers and tall grasses swaying in the autumn breeze. Olivia sat in her car for several minutes, alternating between exhilaration and panic. This was either the most brilliant or the most foolish decision she had ever made. She had just spent her entire life savings on a massive building that she had no experience renovating, in a location that would add nearly an hour to her daily commute, all based on a desperate hope that she could somehow convert a portion of it into a livable home within 30 days. "Well, Reyes," she muttered to herself, grabbing her keys and phone, "time to see what you've gotten yourself into." The main entrance doors were secured with heavy chains and padlocks, but the key set included a padlock key. It took some effort to unwind the chains, but finally the double doors swung open with a cinematic creak that sent a shiver down Olivia's spine. The smell hit her first. The distinctive scent of a long, vacant building, musty and stale but not unpleasant. Dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight that penetrated the dirty windows, illuminating a main hallway lined with lockers in the school's colors of blue and gold. The floors were institutional tile, scuffed but intact, and the walls were painted cinder block in an institutional cream color that had faded to a dingy beige. Olivia moved slowly down the hallway, using her phone's flashlight to illuminate darker areas where the natural light didn't reach. Classrooms branched off on both sides, still containing dusty desks arranged in rows, chalkboards with ghostly erased writing still visible, bulletin boards with faded construction paper remnants. It was as if the school had been frozen in time on its last day of operation, just waiting for students and teachers to return. The cafeteria was a large open space with industrial kitchen equipment still installed behind a serving counter. The gymnasium featured a wooden basketball court with the school owl mascot painted at center court. The library shelves stood empty, but intact, built-in and solid, with a central space where reading circles had once gathered. But it was the administrative wing that truly captured Olivia's attention. Unlike the institutional feel of the classrooms, the principal's office and administrative areas had been finished with higher quality materials, wood paneling, carpeted floors, and more sophisticated lighting fixtures. The principal's office itself was spacious, with large windows overlooking what had once been the front approach to the school. As Olivia explored the administrative suite, she realized this area would be the most logical to convert first. It already had the most home-like feel, with private offices that could become bedrooms, a reception area that could serve as a living room, and a staff lounge with plumbing for a kitchen. Best of all, this section appeared to have its own heating and cooling system, meaning she might be able to make it habitable without immediately needing to restore utilities to the entire massive building. In what had been the principal's private office, Olivia discovered something unexpected, a wall that didn't quite match the others. While 3 walls were finished with the same wood paneling as the rest of the administrative suite, the 4th wall was different, painted drywall that appeared newer than the original construction. Curious, she examined it more closely and noticed a slight seam running along one edge. "No way," she whispered, pressing her hands against different sections of the wall. To her astonishment, a portion of the wall moved slightly under pressure. Further exploration revealed a concealed door, expertly hidden within the wall, but detectable if you knew to look for it. It took Olivia several minutes of careful investigation to figure out the opening mechanism, a specific spot that needed to be pressed in a certain way to release the catch. When the hidden door finally swung open, she found herself looking at a small room about 8 feet square, containing filing cabinets, a desk, and most surprisingly, a substantial safe built into the floor. The hidden room had no windows and appeared to have been constructed well after the school was built, perhaps during renovations in the 1980s, based on the materials used. The filing cabinets were locked, as was the desk, but a thorough search of the key ring she'd been given at the auction yielded no keys that fit these locks. The safe was another matter entirely, a serious commercial-grade floor safe with a combination dial rather than a key. A small brass plate identified it as a Mosler, a brand Olivia recognized from banks and government buildings. Whatever this safe contained, someone had gone to considerable expense and effort to keep it secure and hidden. Olivia sat back on her heels, staring at her discovery with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Why would an elementary school principal need a hidden room and a high-security safe? What could possibly have been kept here that required this level of secrecy? The practical part of her brain suggested focusing on the conversion plans, measuring spaces, checking electrical outlets, assessing plumbing. The mystery room and safe could be explored later after the more pressing matter of creating a livable space was addressed. But as she began to leave the hidden room, something caught her eye. A small notebook that had fallen behind the desk, apparently overlooked when the room was cleared. Olivia picked it up and flipped it open to find handwritten notes in neat, precise penmanship. The first page was dated September 15, 1973, and began, "First delivery received today. Equipment installed in basement storage as directed. Monitoring to begin tomorrow." Olivia frowned, flipping through more pages. The entries continued for several years, all in the same handwriting, all referring to monitoring, reports, subjects, and data transmission. Many entries mentioned the program and central coordination, but never specified what was being monitored or why. A chill ran down Olivia's spine as she realized these were not the notes of a school administrator concerned with education. These were the records of something else entirely, something that had been operating within the school, but separate from its educational mission. One entry from 1976 was particularly disturbing. Subject 22 becoming problematic, increasing anti-establishment, rhetoric at community meetings, central advisors enhanced monitoring, equipment upgraded to capture conversations within residents. Olivia checked her watch and was startled to see that nearly 3 hours had passed since she'd entered the building. She needed to pick up Maya from her friend's house soon. Tucking the notebook into her bag, she took a few quick measurements of the administrative suite, snapped dozens of photos to help with planning, and reluctantly left the hidden room for another day's exploration. As she locked up the building and drove back toward the city, her mind raced with competing thoughts. On one hand, she had found a promising space that could potentially be converted into a comfortable living area within her tight time frame. The administrative suite was approximately 1,500 square feet, larger than most apartments, with separate rooms that could be repurposed without major structural changes. On the other hand, she had discovered something disturbing, evidence that the school might have housed some kind of surveillance operation decades ago. The hidden room, the secure safe, and the cryptic notebook all pointed to activities that seemed wildly inappropriate for an elementary school setting. Olivia picked up Maya from her friend's house, trying to appear normal despite the tumult of emotions and questions swirling inside her. "Did you have a good day at work, Mom?" Maya asked as they drove home. Olivia hesitated, then made a decision. "Actually, I did something different today, something kind of big." She took a deep breath. "I bought us a new place to live." Maya's eyes widened. "Really? Like a house with a yard?" "Well, not exactly a house. It's actually an old school building." "A school?" Maya's voice rose with incredulity. "Like a whole school?" "Yes, a whole elementary school that's been closed for about 10 years. It needs a lot of work, but it's huge, and it has almost 4 acres of land around it. We would start by fixing up just one part to live in and then slowly work on more of it as we can afford to." Maya was silent for a long moment, processing this unexpected information. Then, "Would I get to pick my own classroom to be my bedroom?" Olivia laughed, relief flooding through her. "Eventually, yes, we'll start with the office area, but as we renovate more, you can absolutely choose your own classroom." "Can we go see it? Like right now?" "Not today, honey. It's getting late and there's no electricity there yet, but I promise we'll go this weekend during daylight so you can see everything." That night, after Maya was asleep, Olivia spread out her photos and notes on the kitchen table and began researching in earnest. She looked up building codes for residential conversions, watched YouTube tutorials on basic plumbing and electrical work, and created detailed lists of materials and skills she would need. But she also found herself repeatedly drawn back to the mysterious notebook and its troubling implications. A Google search for Oakwood Elementary Surveillance Program yielded nothing relevant. Searches for the principal during that time period, Harold Jenkins, according to school district archives she found online, revealed only basic career information and a brief obituary noting his death in 2011. Eventually, Olivia set aside the mystery to focus on the immediate challenge of creating a livable space within 30 days. She would need to get utilities connected, install at least basic kitchen facilities, ensure the bathrooms were functional, and make the space secure and reasonably comfortable before their current apartment's lease terminated. It was an overwhelming task, but also strangely empowering. For the first time since her divorce, Olivia felt like she was taking control of their housing situation, rather than being at the mercy of landlords and market forces. They might be living in an unconventional space, but it would be theirs, and no one could force them to leave with 30 days' notice. As she finally prepared for bed, exhausted but energized by possibility, Olivia's gaze fell on the mysterious notebook once more. Tomorrow, she would take Maya to see their new home. Sunday, she would begin the process of applying for permits and arranging for utilities to be connected. And sometime soon, when she could find a few hours alone, she would return to that hidden room and try to crack the safe. Whatever secrets Oakwood Elementary had been keeping for nearly 50 years, Olivia Reyes was now their unwitting custodian. What she didn't yet realize was that those secrets would extend far beyond one rural elementary school, reaching into the highest levels of government and exposing a domestic surveillance program that would ultimately lead to congressional hearings, and the most significant intelligence reform legislation in American history. But for now, she was simply a single mother who had made a desperate, audacious decision to provide a home for her daughter. A decision that would change not only their lives, but potentially the course of American civil liberties for generations to come. The weekend arrived with perfect autumn weather, crisp, clear, and ideal for exploring their new property. Maya practically vibrated with excitement during the 40-minute drive, peppering Olivia with questions about the school and already making plans for gardens, pets, and adventures on their nearly 4 acres. Can I plant pumpkins and maybe get chickens? Can I paint my classroom bedroom whatever color I want? Can I invite my whole class for a sleepover once we fix it up? Olivia laughed. grateful for her daughter's ability to see magic and possibility, where others might only see challenges and hard work. Let's start with making one section actually livable, then we can talk about pumpkins and chickens and sleepovers. When they finally turned onto the long driveway and the brick building came into view, Maya gasped. "It's so big, we're going to live in that?" "Well, not all of it, at least not right away. We'll start with the office area, which is about the size of a small house. The rest will be our very long-term project." They parked, and Maya was out of the car before Olivia had even turned off the engine, racing toward the main entrance with the exuberance only a 10-year-old could muster, at the prospect of exploring an abandoned school. The building looked different in the bright morning light, less foreboding, more full of potential. Olivia unlocked the chains securing the main doors and watched as Maya's eyes widened at the sight of the long hallway lined with blue and gold. "Lockers. This is awesome!" Maya exclaimed, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. She immediately began opening lockers, peering inside each one as if expecting to find treasures left behind by long-gone students. Olivia led Maya through the building, showing her the classrooms, cafeteria, gymnasium, and library. Maya approached each space with wonder, already imagining how they could use it once renovated. "The library could be a giant living room," she suggested. "And the cafeteria could be the biggest kitchen ever. And the gym could be like our own indoor park for when it rains." When they reached the administrative suite, Olivia explained her plan to convert this area first. "The principal's office would make a nice bedroom for me, and this smaller office could be yours. The reception area can be our living room, and the staff lounge already has water hookups for a kitchen." Maya nodded approvingly, mentally placing their furniture in each space. "It's kind of like apartment-sized, but inside a whole school that we also own, like a secret apartment." Olivia smiled, relieved that Maya was embracing the unconventional living situation. She had worried that her daughter might be upset about moving away from her friends or living in such an unusual space, but instead, Maya seemed to view it as a grand adventure. As Maya explored the administrative area, opening drawers and peering into cabinets, Olivia debated whether to show her the hidden room. On one hand, it was an exciting discovery that Maya would undoubtedly find fascinating. On the other hand, the disturbing implications of the surveillance notes gave Olivia pause. Would sharing this with Maya unnecessarily burden her with adult concerns? In the end, Maya made the decision for her. While examining the wood paneling in the principal's office, she noticed the same irregularity that had caught Olivia's attention. "Mom, this wall looks different from the others," she said, running her hands along the seam that Olivia had discovered the day before. "You've got a good eye," Olivia acknowledged. "I found something pretty interesting yesterday." She showed Maya how to press on the specific spot that released the hidden door mechanism. Maya's jaw dropped as the concealed door swung open. "A secret room, for real. This is like something from a mystery book." They entered the hidden space together, Maya circling the small room with growing excitement. "What's in the filing cabinets? And is that a real safe like in banks?" "I don't know what's in either of them yet," Olivia admitted. "They're locked, and I haven't found the keys, but I did find this." She showed Maya the notebook, being careful to frame it as an interesting historical artifact, rather than something potentially sinister. "It seems like someone was using this room for some kind of monitoring program back in the 1970s. "Like spying?" Maya asked, her eyes wide. "Was the principal a secret agent?" "I'm not sure exactly what was happening here," Olivia said carefully. "But it's definitely interesting, isn't it? Maybe we can do some research and find out more about the school's history." They spent the rest of the morning measuring spaces, discussing renovation plans, and exploring the grounds. The property included a small wooded area, a large open field that had once been sports fields, and several mature maple trees that reminded Maya of her beloved tree at their apartment. "Look, Mum, there are like 20 trees I can adopt now," or she exclaimed, already planning her expanded science project. By early afternoon, they had covered most of the property, and Olivia had a growing list of immediate tasks. Contact utilities companies, find a contractor for the most essential renovations, begin the permit application process, and start sourcing appliances and fixtures they would need. But as they prepared to leave, Maya asked the question that had been on Olivia's mind as well. "Are we going to try to open the safe?" Olivia hesitated. "I'm not sure how we would do that. It's a combination safe and we don't have the combination. Maybe there's a clue somewhere. In detective books, there's always a hidden clue to the combination, like a birthday or an important date." "Maybe," Olivia agreed, not wanting to dampen Maya's enthusiasm. "But first, we need to focus on making this place livable. We only have 26 days before we have to be out of our apartment." "I bet I can figure it out," Maya said confidently. "Can we come back tomorrow after school, please?" Olivia had planned to use Monday to begin the utility connection process, but Maya's excitement was infectious. "We can come for a little while, but just to take more measurements and make plans. The safe mystery might have to wait." As they drove home, Maya chatted excitedly about their new schoolhouse, already referring to it as home and making plans for her classroom bedroom. Olivia felt a wave of relief that her risky decisions seemed to be working out, at least from Maya's perspective. But in the back of her mind, questions about the hidden room, the safe, and the surveillance notes continued to gnaw at her. What had really been happening at Oakwood Elementary during those years? Who had been monitoring whom and why? And most importantly, what might still be locked inside that safe after all these years? Olivia didn't know it yet, but the answers to those questions would soon connect her to a nationwide program that had operated in secret for decades, a program that had monitored Americans without warrants, collected data without oversight, and remained hidden from congressional scrutiny until a single mother's desperate housing solution accidentally exposed one of the most significant violations of civil liberties in American history. The safe was waiting. The truth was waiting, and Olivia Reyes, who had only wanted to provide a stable home for her daughter, was about to become the unlikely whistleblower who would force America to confront a surveillance apparatus that had operated in the shadows for generations. The Monday after their weekend exploration, Olivia took a personal day from work to focus on the mountain of tasks required to make their school home habitable. She'd created a meticulous schedule working backward from their move-out deadline, identifying critical path items that needed immediate attention. First priority, utilities. By mid-morning, she had arranged for electrical service to be restored to the building the following week. Water and sewage would take longer. The rural location meant they were on well water and a septic system, both of which needed inspection and likely repair after years of disuse. The gas company could reconnect service within 10 days, but the ancient boiler system would need professional evaluation before they could count on heat. Second priority, securing essential permits. Olivia drove to the county offices, armed, with a folder of paperwork for conditional occupancy permits. The zoning administrator, a middle-aged man named Russell Patel, raised his eyebrows when she explained her plan. "Living in a school building, that's certainly unusual," he commented, flipping through her application. "But not impossible. The zoning does allow for adaptive reuse, and since you're only converting a small portion initially, we can probably work with a phased permitting approach." He explained that she would need to demonstrate basic safety compliance, functioning smoke detectors, proper egress, sanitary facilities, and safe electrical systems for the specific area she planned to occupy. The rest of the building could remain classified as unoccupied space while she gradually renovated it. "I'll fast-track this application," Patel promised. "Housing security is important, especially with a child involved, but you'll still need to pass inspections before occupancy." By early afternoon, Olivia had filed the necessary paperwork, scheduled preliminary inspections, and connected with 3 contractors recommended by Eleanor Diaz. One of them, Miguel Hernandez, agreed to meet her at the school that same day to assess the administrative area and provide a quote for the essential work. Miguel turned out to be a godsend, a practical, efficient contractor who specialized in unconventional renovations. He walked through the administrative suite with Olivia, making notes and offering pragmatic suggestions. "The basic structure is solid," he confirmed. "These old public buildings were overbuilt by today's standards. Main issues will be updating electrical to code, checking the plumbing, and creating proper kitchen facilities." He tapped the drop ceiling. "The good news is that all the mechanical systems are accessible. We can work with what's here rather than starting from scratch." When Miguel provided his estimate, $12,600 for the essential work needed for occupancy, Olivia's heart sank. It was far more than the $840 she had left after the auction purchase. Seeing her expression, Miguel asked, "The budget's tight, isn't it?" Olivia nodded, embarrassed. "I spent almost everything on purchasing the property. My new job starts in 6 weeks with a significant pay increase, but that doesn't help me now." Miguel considered this. "What if we break it into phases? We do the absolute minimum for legal occupancy now. Electrical safety, basic plumbing, essential kitchen setup. That might get you in the door for around $4,000. Then we tackle the rest after your new position starts." "That's still more than I have available," Olivia admitted. "How are your DIY skills? Some of this work you could do yourself with proper guidance. I could supervise and handle the licensed electrical and plumbing work while you take on demolition, painting, and basic installation. That could cut costs significantly." Hope flickered to life. "I'm a quick learner, and I have evenings and weekends." "Let's revise the plan," Miguel suggested. "I'll create a hybrid approach where I handle the code-critical elements, and you take on what's within your capabilities. Maybe we can get the essential work down to around $2,500. By the time Maya's school day ended, Olivia had a workable plan and a revised quote of $2,380 for the essential contractor work. She'd need to find about $500 more, but that seemed potentially manageable through credit cards or a short-term loan from friends. When she picked up Maya from school, her daughter immediately asked, "Are we going to the schoolhouse? Can we try to open the safe today?" The safe. In the flurry of practical concerns, Olivia had almost forgotten about the mysterious locked safe in the hidden room. "We can stop by briefly," she agreed, "but just for an hour. I need to start my evening shift at 6 go." The autumn afternoon was already fading toward evening as they arrived at Oakwood Elementary. Maya bounded up the steps, eager to continue exploring their new home, while Olivia followed with a bag of basic supplies, work gloves, cleaning products, measuring tape, and a notebook for planning. While Maya investigated the classrooms more thoroughly, Olivia returned to the hidden room to examine the locked filing cabinets more carefully. Without keys, she couldn't open them, but she noticed something she'd missed before: small labels on each drawer, with dates ranging from 1971 to 1987. The desk was similarly locked, but a thorough examination revealed a small compartment beneath the writing surface that hadn't been secured. Inside, Olivia found several items: a tarnished key ring with 3 keys, a small notebook different from the one she'd already discovered, and a folded document that appeared to be an operations manual of some kind. The keys didn't match the filing cabinets, but Olivia set them aside to try on other locks throughout the building. The new notebook contained what appeared to be a cipher, pages of seemingly random numbers and letters organized in columns, with occasional annotations. In the margins, the operations manual was even more intriguing. Domestic Observation Network, Field Station Protocols 1972 revision. Olivia flipped through the manual with growing unease. It outlined procedures for passive monitoring, data collection, subject identification, and transmission security. The language was deliberately obscure, using code words and technical terminology that made the exact nature of the activities difficult to discern, but the overall impression was unmistakable. Oakwood Elementary, or at least this hidden portion of it, had been part of some kind of surveillance operation. "Mom, come quick! I found something!" Maya's voice echoed through the administrative suite. Olivia tucked the manual and cipher notebook into her bag and hurried to find her daughter, who was standing in what had been the school nurse's office, pointing excitedly at the wall. "Look, there's another hidden door." Sure enough, what appeared to be a standard supply closet had a false back panel, revealed when Maya had been exploring the shelves. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading downward. "This is so cool," Maya whispered. "It's like our schoolhouse is full of secret passages." Together, they descended the stairs, Olivia leading the way with her phone's flashlight illuminating the darkness. The stairs ended at a heavy metal door with an electronic keypad, technology that seemed out of place in a building from the 1960s. "This must have been added later," Olivia murmured, examining the keypad. It required a 6-digit code, but unlike the locks upstairs, there was no key alternative. "Try my birthday," Maya suggested. "That's what people always use in movies." Olivia smiled at her daughter's reasoning, but doubted that whoever had installed this security system would have used Maya's birth date. Still, they had to start somewhere. She entered Maya's birthday, 07-15-12. The keypad flashed red. "What about your birthday?" Maya suggested. Olivia tried her own, 9-22-85. Another red flash. They spent the next 15 minutes trying various combinations. The school's founding date, 06-14-63, the address numbers, famous historical dates associated with the town. Nothing worked. "Let's try the date from that notebook you found," Maya suggested. "What was the first entry?" "September 15th, 1973, Olivia recalled. She entered 091573. The keypad remained stubbornly red. What if it's not a date? Maya wondered. Maybe it's a special code. Olivia thought about the cipher notebook she'd just discovered. "You might be onto something, but we don't have time to figure it out today. I need to get to work and you have homework." As they returned upstairs, Olivia's mind raced with questions. What lay behind that secured door? How did it connect to the surveillance notes and the hidden room upstairs? And most pressingly, what might be in the floor safe that she still hadn't managed to open? The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. By day, Olivia worked her regular nursing shifts. Evenings and weekends were entirely devoted to renovation work, with Maya helping wherever she could. Miguel proved to be not just a skilled contractor, but an excellent teacher, showing Olivia how to remove old drywall, run basic electrical extensions under his supervision, and install kitchen fixtures. The administrative suite gradually transformed. The reception area became a comfortable living room, with furniture they'd brought from their apartment, supplemented by second-hand finds. The former principal's office was converted into Olivia's bedroom, while a smaller adjoining office became Maya's room. The staff lounge, with its existing water connections, evolved into a functional, if basic, kitchen. Miguel handled all the code-critical work, upgrading the electrical panel, ensuring proper ventilation, installing smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and certifying that the plumbing met health standards. Olivia tackled everything else: painting, basic carpentry, flooring installation, and endless cleaning. Through careful budgeting, creative problem-solving, and the generous lending of tools from Miguel and Eleanor, they managed to keep costs just within Olivia's stretched financial limits. Eleanor even organized a renovation shower, like a baby shower, but for their building project, where friends and neighbors contributed essential household items and building supplies. Throughout this intensive renovation period, Olivia continued to puzzle over the mysteries of Oakwood Elementary. During brief breaks, she would examine the surveillance notebooks, operation manuals, and cipher documents she'd discovered, trying to piece together what had happened in this building decades ago. The picture that emerged was disturbing. It appeared that from at least 1971 to 1987, a section of Oakwood Elementary had housed monitoring equipment used to conduct surveillance on the surrounding community. The subjects mentioned in the notebooks seemed to be ordinary citizens, local activists, political organizers, and community leaders whose activities were deemed worthy of government attention. But the most troubling revelation came 18 days after purchasing the property, when Olivia finally managed to open the floor safe. The breakthrough happened accidentally. While cleaning the hidden room, which they planned to convert into a home office, Olivia noticed something odd about the operational manual she'd found. Certain pages had subtle marks next to specific numbers in the text, tiny dots that would be easy to miss if you weren't looking closely. On a hunch, she compiled these marked numbers in sequence: 29, 14, 36, 08, 21, 43. Could this be the combination to the safe? With Maya at a friend's house for the evening, Olivia had time to test her theory. Kneeling beside the floor safe, she carefully turned the dial to each number in the sequence. When she reached the final number and tried the handle, she felt a momentary resistance. Then the satisfying click of the mechanism releasing. The safe door swung open, revealing contents that had remained sealed for decades. Several file folders labeled classified, a small reel-to-reel tape recorder with tapes, a leather-bound logbook, and what appeared to be technical manuals for surveillance equipment. Olivia's hands trembled slightly as she lifted out the classified folders. The first contained what appeared to be transcripts of monitored conversations, primarily focusing on local environmental activists who had opposed a chemical plant in the late 1970s. The second held surveillance reports on civil rights organizers working on voting registration drives. The third contained something even more disturbing: detailed personal information about ordinary citizens who had attended political meetings, participated in protests, or simply associated with people considered persons of interest. The logbook provided the operational context, daily records of surveillance activities, equipment maintenance, and communication, with something referred to only as central. The entries stretched from 1971 to 1987, all apparently written by the same person, Harold Jenkins, the school's principal during those years. As Olivia read through the materials, a chilling picture emerged. Oakwood Elementary had been one of dozens, possibly hundreds, of field stations in something called the Domestic Observation Network. Under the cover of an ordinary public, school government agencies had conducted warrantless surveillance on American citizens, targeting them not for criminal activity, but for their political beliefs, advocacy work, and associations. Most disturbing of all was a document titled Project Schoolhouse Implementation Summary. This report outlined the strategic decision to place surveillance operations within public schools. They were government-owned buildings with built-in cover stories, regularly scheduled hours that allowed for operational consistency, and positions of authority that gave operators access to community information without suspicion. According to the document, the program had begun as a pilot in 1971, with 12 schools nationwide, then expanded to over 60 locations by 1975. Oakwood Elementary was described as particularly successful due to rural location and principal's previous intelligence background. The implications were staggering. If this document was accurate, the US government had systematically used public schools as cover for domestic surveillance operations for at least 16 years, and possibly longer. The program had operated without public knowledge, judicial oversight, or congressional approval, targeting American citizens exercising their constitutional rights. Olivia sat back on her heels, trying to process what she'd discovered. This wasn't just historical curiosity. It was evidence of potentially illegal government activity on a massive scale. Even if the program had ended in 1987, as the record suggested, the constitutional implications were enormous. What should she do with this information? Going to the local police seemed pointless. This was far beyond their jurisdiction. Federal authorities? But which ones could she trust, given that federal agencies appeared to be behind the program in the first place? As she carefully replaced the documents in the safe for the night, Olivia decided she needed more information before taking any action. She needed to understand whether this was an isolated operation or part of a larger pattern, whether anyone had ever been held accountable, and most importantly, whether similar programs might still be active today. The next day, Olivia called in sick to work, something she rarely did, and drove to the State University Library 40 minutes away. As a healthcare professional, she could request academic access to research databases, allowing her to search for any published information about domestic surveillance programs during the relevant time period. What she found both confirmed her suspicions and deepened her concerns. There had been congressional investigations in the 1970s into various domestic surveillance abuses, resulting in reforms and oversight mechanisms supposedly designed to prevent. Exactly the kind of operation that had been housed at Oakwood Elementary. But the dates didn't align. The documented surveillance at Oakwood had continued well after these reforms were implemented, suggesting that the program had either evaded the new oversight requirements or operated under exemptions that kept it hidden from public view. Even more troubling were academic papers and journalism from the post-9/11 era, suggesting that domestic surveillance had expanded dramatically in recent decades, with new technologies enabling more extensive monitoring than anything possible. In the 1970s and 80s, by the time Olivia returned home that evening, she had reached a difficult conclusion. She couldn't simply ignore what she'd found. This information needed to reach people who could properly investigate its significance and ensure accountability. But how to share it without putting herself and Maya at risk? The answer came from an unexpected source. While helping Maya with a school project on the First Amendment, Olivia came across information about journalist shield laws and whistleblower protections. One name appeared repeatedly in articles about government accountability: Rebecca Torres, an investigative journalist, known for her work exposing government overreach and her commitment to protecting sources. After several days of deliberation, Olivia composed a carefully worded email to Torres, providing enough details to establish the credibility of her discovery without revealing her identity or specific location. She created a new email account for this purpose, using public Wi-Fi at the local library rather than her home internet connection. Torres responded within hours, expressing strong interest and suggesting secure communication methods for sharing more information. Over the next week, they established a careful protocol. Olivia would provide digitized copies of key documents, while Torres would investigate whether similar operations had existed in other locations. 24 days after purchasing Oakwood Elementary, and just 6 days before their apartment lease terminated, Olivia received the final occupancy approval from the county inspector. The administrative suite had been successfully converted into a comfortable, if unconventional, living space. Miguel had ensured all safety requirements were met, and Olivia had transformed the institutional spaces into a warm, welcoming home. As they moved their belongings from the apartment to the schoolhouse, Maya bubbled with excitement about their new adventure. "We have the coolest house ever! Wait until my friends see this!" Olivia shared her daughter's enthusiasm about their new home, but beneath her smile lay growing anxiety about the investigation she had set in motion. Torres had confirmed that the documents were significant, potentially explosive evidence of a long-running, unauthorized surveillance program that had operated in direct contravention of post-Watergate reforms. More concerning still, Torres had uncovered preliminary evidence suggesting that while Project Schoolhouse had officially terminated in 1989, its methodologies and some of its infrastructure might have been absorbed into newer surveillance programs that continued to operate with minimal oversight. These documents could be the thread that unravels a much larger tapestry of domestic surveillance, Torres had written in their secure communication. But proceeding requires extreme caution. The agencies implicated have significant resources and a vested interest in keeping this buried. On their first night in their new home, after Maya had fallen asleep in her freshly painted bedroom, formerly the assistant principal's office, Olivia sat alone in the hidden room, surrounded by evidence of a government program that had systematically violated citizens' constitutional rights for years. She had never considered herself political or an activist. Her life had been focused on practical concerns, completing her education, advancing her career, providing for her daughter, keeping a roof over their heads. She had purchased this building out of desperation, not idealism. A last-ditch effort to solve a housing crisis, not to expose government wrongdoing. Yet here she sat, in possession of information that could potentially trigger congressional investigations, policy reforms, and a fundamental reassessment of domestic surveillance practices. The path ahead was uncertain and potentially dangerous, but turning back no longer felt like an option. Olivia carefully selected the most significant documents, those that clearly established the program's existence, scope, and authorization chain, and prepared them for secure transmission to Torres. The journalist had promised to thoroughly verify the information before publishing, ensuring that the eventual story would be unassailable in its accuracy. As she worked, Olivia reflected on the strange journey that had brought her to this point. Her desperate search for affordable housing had led her to this abandoned school. Her determination to create a home for Maya had led her to discover the hidden room. And now, her commitment to truth and justice was leading her to actions she would never have imagined taking just a month ago. There was a certain poetic justice to it all, a surveillance program that had targeted ordinary citizens exercising their constitutional rights was about to be exposed by an ordinary citizen exercising her constitutional rights. The same building that had once housed secret government monitoring would now be the source of public accountability for that very monitoring. Tomorrow, the secure file transfer to Torres would begin the process that would eventually lead to front-page headlines, congressional hearings, and sweeping intelligence reforms. But tonight, Olivia was simply a mother who had found an unconventional solution to her housing crisis, a nurse who had traded rental insecurity for mortgage-free home ownership, a woman who had transformed an institutional space into a warm, personal sanctuary for her family. As she finally prepared for bed, Olivia moved through their new home, checking locks and turning off lights. The building was large and still unfamiliar, with many rooms yet to be explored and renovated. But the converted administrative suite already felt like home, their home, secure and solid and theirs. Whatever challenges lay ahead with the investigation, Olivia took comfort in knowing that she and Maya now had a stable foundation from which to face them. No landlord could evict them with 30 days' notice. No developer could displace them. For luxury condos, They had traded housing insecurity for something precious, control over their own living situation and the freedom to create the home they wanted, on their own terms and in their own time. It wasn't the life Olivia had imagined when she'd completed her nurse practitioner certification, but as she looked around at what they'd accomplished in less than a month, she felt a surge of pride and determination. They had transformed an abandoned school into a home. Now she would transform herself from an accidental discoverer into a purposeful whistleblower, because some truths were too important to remain hidden, even when revealing them came at personal risk. The journey ahead would test her courage, challenge her resilience, and ultimately transform her understanding of citizenship and responsibility. But tonight, in the quiet of their unconventional new home, Olivia Reyes was at peace with the path she had chosen. A path that would eventually lead from a hidden room in an abandoned rural school to the highest chambers of government accountability. In Washington, D.C., 3 weeks after Olivia had contacted journalist Rebecca Torres, the investigation had expanded beyond anything she could have anticipated. Torres had assembled a small team of trusted researchers, digital security experts, and legal advisors working in careful secrecy to verify the Oakwood Elementary documents and connect them to the broader historical context of domestic surveillance. Through encrypted communications, Torres kept Olivia updated on their progress. The journalist had located 3 former government employees willing to speak anonymously about Project Schoolhouse, confirming not only its existence, but its scale. At its peak in the early 1980s, the program had operated in over 100 schools nationwide. "What you've discovered is the missing link," Torres wrote in one message. Historians and civil liberties researchers have long suspected that domestic surveillance continued through the 1970s and 80s despite congressional reforms, but hard evidence has been elusive. These documents provide incontrovertible proof of a systematic program operating outside legal boundaries. Meanwhile, Olivia and Maya were settling into their unconventional new home. The administrative suite had been successfully converted into a comfortable living space, and they had begun exploring renovation possibilities for other parts of the building. Maya had claimed a sun-filled former science classroom as her future dream bedroom, and they had plans to eventually transform the school library into a grand family living room. The daily life took on a rhythm that balanced normalcy with the extraordinary circumstances they found themselves in. Olivia had started her new nurse practitioner position, with the significant pay increase providing financial breathing room for the first time in years. Maya had adjusted well to the longer commute to her school, treating it as an adventure rather than an inconvenience. On weekends, they would tackle small renovation projects together, gradually expanding their living space within the massive building. Elena Diaz and Miguel Hernandez became regular visitors, offering guidance, tools, and encouragement as Olivia's renovation skills improved. Other neighbors, initially curious about the school lady and her daughter, had become supportive friends, occasionally joining weekend work parties that combined renovation progress with impromptu community gatherings. Through it all, Olivia maintained her secret role in the growing investigation. Each evening after Maya went to bed, she would spend an hour or two in the hidden room, which they had jokingly dubbed the study for Maya's benefit, cataloguing documents, responding to Torres's inquiries, and trying to decode the remaining mysteries of Oakwood Elementary. The electronic keypad door in the basement remained locked, despite numerous attempts to crack its 6-digit code. The cipher notebook had proven equally resistant to Olivia's amateur cryptography efforts, but the documents from the floor safe had already provided enough evidence to establish the program's existence, scope, and constitutional implications. 6 weeks after purchasing the school, Olivia received an urgent message from Torres. "Major breakthrough. Need to talk immediately. Secure call tonight, 11 p.m. When the call connected that night, Torres' voice carried a mixture of excitement and concern. "We've identified living operators from at least 17 Project Schoolhouse locations," she explained. 3 have agreed to provide testimony, including detailed information about the program's command structure, authorization chain, and operational procedures. "That's incredible," Olivia responded, her voice hushed to avoid waking Maya. "Will this be enough to go public with the story?" "That's what I need to discuss with you," Torres said. "My editorial team wants to publish within 2 weeks. They believe we have sufficient verification to withstand the scrutiny and potential pushback that will follow. But there's something else you need to know first." Torres paused, her voice growing more serious. "One of our sources claims that Project Schoolhouse officially ended in 1989, but its infrastructure and methodologies were incorporated into a successor program called Mentor that continued into the early 2000s. If true, this extends the timeline of illegal surveillance by at least another decade. Do we have confirmation?" Olivia asked, her mind racing with implications. "Partial," Torres replied. "We've found budget documents with coded references that align with the source's claims, and FOIA requests have turned up heavily redacted, memos that mention Mentor. But we don't have the kind of direct evidence that your Oakwood documents provide for Project Schoolhouse." "What does this mean for publication?" "It means we have a decision to make," Torres explained. "We can publish what we know for certain about Project Schoolhouse, which is already a major story with significant historical and constitutional implications, or we can delay publication while pursuing the Mentor connection, potentially uncovering an even larger story that extends closer to the present day." Olivia considered this carefully. "What are the risks of waiting?" "The longer we investigate, the more people become involved, increasing the chance of leaks. There's also the possibility that sources could be identified or pressured to remain silent. And frankly, there's a personal risk to you as the primary document source, particularly if current or former intelligence officials realize the Oakwood documents have been compromised." The thought sent a chill through Olivia. She glanced toward Maya's bedroom door, thinking of her daughter peacefully sleeping just down the hall. "And if you publish now, we establish the historical record of Project Schoolhouse beyond dispute. We force congressional acknowledgement of illegal domestic surveillance operations during a period when such activities were supposedly reformed and restricted. We create public pressure for accountability and further investigation, potentially creating conditions for additional whistleblowers to come forward with information about successor programs." Olivia took a deep breath. "Then I think we should proceed with publication, establish what we know for certain, create the foundation for further investigation, and see what emerges from the public response." "I agree," Torres said, relief evident in her voice. "We'll move forward with a 3-part investigative series, beginning with the historical context of domestic surveillance, then revealing Project Schoolhouse with the Oakwood evidence, and finally examining the implications and potential connections to more recent programs." "When will it be published?" 12 days from now. We'll launch the series on a Sunday for maximum impact, with follow-up pieces Monday and Tuesday. By Wednesday, I expect congressional offices will be responding with calls for investigation. And my identity? Protected, absolutely, Torres assured her. You'll be identified only as a private citizen who discovered documented evidence during property renovation. All documents will be presented without information that could identify Oakwood Elementary specifically. Your location, name, and personal details will be completely withheld. After ending the call, Olivia stood at the window of what had once been a school principal's office and was now her bedroom, looking out at the moonlit grounds of their unusual home. The massive brick building with its institutional architecture had become something she'd never dared hope for. A permanent home, mortgage-free, with space for Maya to grow and flourish. But it had also become something she never could have imagined. The source of evidence that might fundamentally change Americans' understanding of their government's activities and reshape the legal frameworks governing domestic surveillance. The days leading up to publication passed with agonizing slowness. Olivia maintained her normal routines, working at the clinic, helping Maya with homework, continuing their renovation projects, while carrying the weight of knowing that a bombshell investigation was about to break, with evidence she had provided at its center. Torres kept her updated on preparations. Legal reviews of the reporting had been completed, security measures for the digital publication had been enhanced, and a comprehensive plan for responding to the inevitable government denials had been developed. The editorial team had even prepared for the possibility of legal challenges attempting to block publication, though their attorneys believed the First Amendment protections were firmly on their side, given the clear public interest in exposing government misconduct. The night before publication, Olivia couldn't sleep. She paced through their living space, checking locks, adjusting already perfect picture frames, and reorganizing kitchen cabinets that didn't need reorganizing. Around 2 a.m., she found herself drawn back to the hidden room, where she had left the floor safe closed but unlocked. Opening it again, she reviewed the documents that would soon become national news. The classified folders with their surveillance, reports on ordinary citizens, the operational manuals outlining monitoring procedures, the logbook documenting years of warrantless surveillance conducted from within a public elementary school. These papers had waited patiently for decades, their secrets preserved in this hidden room while the world changed around them. They had survived the end of the Cold War, the digital revolution, the war on terror, and countless shifts in political power. Now finally, they would fulfill their potential as evidence, not of the subversive activities they had been created to document, but of the government overreach they themselves represented. As dawn approached, Olivia carefully replaced the documents and closed the safe. Whatever happened next, she had done what she believed was right. She had discovered evidence of government wrongdoing and had ensured it would reach the public. Through responsible journalism, the constitutional principles she had learned about in high school civics class, checks and balances, freedom of the press, protection against unreasonable searches, were not just abstract concepts, but responsibilities that sometimes fell to ordinary citizens to uphold. Sunday morning arrived with deceptive normalcy. Olivia made pancakes for Maya, helped her with a science project, and tried to appear calm despite the knowledge that at precisely 8 a.m., Torres's investigation would be published simultaneously by a major newspaper, an online news platform, and a respected investigative journalism outlet. At 8:05, Olivia's phone pinged with a message from Torres. "It's live, prepare for a busy day." By noon, the story had exploded across news outlets and social media. Exposed, secret government surveillance program used schools as cover, read. And headline, decades of illegal domestic spying revealed through school documents, announced another. Cable news channels had assembled panels of legal experts, former intelligence officials, and civil liberties advocates to debate the implications. The reporting was meticulous, presenting the evidence methodically while providing crucial historical context about previous domestic surveillance scandals and the reforms that had supposedly prevented such activities from continuing. The documents, from Oakwood Elementary, carefully redacted to protect Olivia's identity, formed the backbone of the reporting, supplemented by testimonials from the former program operators Torres had located. By mid-afternoon, congressional leaders from both parties were issuing statements expressing alarm and calling for immediate hearings. The current directors of various intelligence agencies offered careful, no-comment responses, citing the need to review the historical allegations before responding substantively. Former officials were less restrained. Several went on record expressing shock and denying knowledge of the program, while others attempted to contextualize it within the Cold War era's national security concerns. A few brave voices acknowledged that such programs had indeed existed and suggested that similar operations likely continued under different names and authorities. Through it all, Olivia maintained her daily routine, taking Maya to a friend's birthday party, completing a grocery run, and continuing work on their kitchen renovation as if it were any ordinary Sunday. The extraordinary discipline required to appear normal while watching her discovery transform. The national conversation was perhaps the hardest thing she'd ever done. That evening, as Maya worked on homework in her room, Olivia finally allowed herself to fully absorb the day's developments. Sitting in their living room, formerly the school's reception area, she watched coverage of the unfolding story on her laptop, volume low to avoid attracting Maya's attention. The reporting had been received exactly as Torres had hoped. The evidence was considered credible and compelling. The constitutional implications were being taken seriously, and the historical significance was acknowledged across the political spectrum. Most importantly, the focus remained on the documented program rather than the source of the documents, with Olivia's identity and location successfully protected. Monday's follow-up reporting deepened the story, revealing the program's expansion, phases, funding mechanisms, and the various intelligence agencies involved in its operation. Former government officials began coming forward with additional information, either to distance themselves from the program or to provide context that might mitigate its clearly problematic constitutional implications. By Tuesday, congressional hearings had been announced, with the House Intelligence Committee and Senate Judiciary Committee both scheduling sessions for the following week. Civil liberties organizations filed Freedom of Information Act requests seeking additional documentation about Project Schoolhouse and potential successor programs. Legal scholars debated the statute of limitations for potential criminal charges against program administrators who were still living. Through secure channels, Torres kept Olivia updated on developments and the impact of her whistleblowing. Your discovery has accomplished what decades of FOIA requests and litigation couldn't, the journalist wrote. You've forced acknowledgement of a surveillance apparatus that operated outside legal boundaries for years. Whatever happens next, that truth is now part of the public record. On Wednesday evening, as the story entered its fourth day of national tea, prominence, Olivia experienced the first hint that her anonymity might not be absolute. While shopping at a hardware store 30 minutes from their school home, she noticed a man in a dark suit watching her with unusual intensity. When she moved to a different aisle, he followed at a discreet distance, never approaching but clearly monitoring her movements. Unsettled but determined not to show alarm, Olivia completed her purchases and returned to her car, checking carefully to ensure she wasn't followed. The incident might have been innocent. Perhaps the man had simply thought he recognized her, but it left her with a lingering sense of unease. That night, after Maya was asleep, Olivia contacted Torres through their secure channel, describing the encounter and her concerns. It may be nothing, Torres responded, but we should implement additional security measures. I'm sending you contact information for a digital security consultant who works with whistleblowers. They can help ensure your communications remain protected and advise on physical security precautions. The consultant, who identified themselves only as Alex, contacted Olivia the following day with practical recommendations. Change her regular routes and schedules. Install security cameras at the school property, use a virtual private network for all internet activity, and consider a temporary relocation if more concrete threats emerged. Most whistleblowers experience some level of surveillance or intimidation, Alex explained, but actual harm is rare, especially when the disclosed information is historical rather than operational. Your greatest protection is the public attention. On this story, the worst thing for any agency implicated would be for something to happen to the document source now that the story is public. Somewhat reassured, Olivia implemented the recommended security measures while continuing their normal life at the schoolhouse. She installed cameras covering the property's entry points, varied her daily commute routes, and became more vigilant about unfamiliar vehicles or individuals in their rural area. Maya, perceptive as always, noticed the changes. "Are you worried about something, Mom?" she asked one evening as Olivia checked the security camera feeds before bedtime. Olivia considered how to respond without frightening her daughter. "Just being extra careful," she said finally. "Sometimes when you own a big property like this, it's good to know what's happening around it." Maya seemed to accept this explanation, but later that week she asked a more difficult question. "Mom, are those papers you found in the hidden room connected to the big news story everyone's talking about, the one about spying in schools?" Startled, Olivia turned to her daughter. "What makes you ask that?" "We discussed it in social studies class," Maya explained. "Mr. Ramos showed us some of the news articles about how the government used schools to spy on people a long time ago. And then I remembered those papers you found with all the dates from the 1970s and 80s, and how they talked about monitoring people." She looked at Olivia with solemn eyes. "It's our school, isn't it? Oakwood was one of those places." Olivia sat down beside Maya, realizing she had underestimated both her daughter's awareness of current events and her ability to connect dots. "Yes," she admitted after a moment. "The papers we found are related to that program, but how we handle that information is very important and very private, not something we should discuss with others right now." Rather than appearing frightened, Maya's expression reflected understanding beyond her years. "That's why you installed the cameras, and why you check the windows at night more than you used to." "I'm just being cautious," Olivia assured her. "The most important thing is that we're safe and together. The people who ran that program a long time ago might not be happy that their secret was discovered, but what matters most is that the truth is now known." Maya thought about this, then nodded firmly. "It's like in my book about Harriet Tubman. Sometimes doing the right thing means being really brave and really careful at the same time." Olivia hugged her daughter, amazed at her perception and wisdom. "That's exactly right, and we're going to keep being both brave and careful together." As congressional hearings began the following week, the story expanded in unexpected directions. Former intelligence officials, seeking to mitigate their own potential culpability, revealed details about how Project Schoolhouse had evolved into more sophisticated surveillance programs in the 1990s and 2000s. Documents began to emerge, showing that the methodology, using public facilities as cover for domestic monitoring, had continued well beyond the time frame initially reported. Most significantly, a retired FBI agent testified that elements of Project Schoolhouse's infrastructure had been incorporated into post-9/11 surveillance programs, with technological updates but similar constitutional blind spots. His testimony suggested that the illegal monitoring of political activists, environmentalists, and other domestic groups had continued under different authorities and code names, potentially to the present day. The revelations transformed what had initially been viewed as a historical scandal into an urgent contemporary civil liberties issue. Congressional representatives from across the political spectrum found common cause in expressing outrage about potentially ongoing domestic surveillance conducted without proper oversight or constitutional safeguards. 2 weeks into the hearings, the story took another dramatic turn when the Senate Intelligence Committee chair announced the formation of a special investigative panel with expanded powers to review classified programs potentially descended from Project Schoolhouse. The panel would have authority to access highly classified operational details normally withheld even from congressional oversight committees, with the explicit goal of determining whether illegal domestic surveillance had continued under different authorities. Through it all, Olivia maintained her anonymity, watching from afar as her discovery catalyzed a national reckoning with surveillance practices spanning decades. Torres kept her informed through their secure channel, sharing developments and expressing continued amazement at how thoroughly the story had penetrated public consciousness. What began as historical evidence has opened a door that 3 decades of civil liberties litigation couldn't pry open, the journalist wrote. Your discovery may ultimately reshape the entire legal framework governing domestic intelligence activities. 8 weeks after the initial publication, as congressional investigations continued to expand and public attention remained focused on surveillance reform, Olivia received an encrypted message from Torres that changed everything. Critical development. Need to meet in person. Secure location tomorrow, 2 p.m. The specified location was a small legal aid office in a city 40 minutes from Oakwood Elementary. Torres had arranged for a private conference room where they could speak without electronic devices present, the highest level of security they had employed since beginning their communication. That evening, after ensuring Maya was occupied with homework, Olivia carefully documented everything from the basement facility, creating multiple digital copies encrypted with different passwords. Following security protocols established with Torres, she uploaded these files to secure cloud storage accessible only through multi-factor authentication. The physical documents were more challenging. The technical evolution document particularly needed preservation. It was potentially the most significant evidence yet discovered, explicitly connecting Cold War-era surveillance to programs that had continued into the 1990s and potentially beyond. Olivia created a high-quality digital scan, then carefully placed the original in a waterproof document sleeve. Following Catherine's previous advice about evidence preservation, she hid this critical document separate from the others, concealing it within a hollow section of baseboard molding in Maya's bedroom that they had discovered during renovation. The next morning brought news that confirmed the importance of her discovery. Congressional hearings had taken a dramatic turn when a former intelligence official testified that elements of Project Schoolhouse's monitoring capabilities had indeed been transferred to successor programs operating well into the 2000s. While he provided no documentation to support this claim, his testimony aligned perfectly with the technical evolution document Olivia had discovered. Torres contacted her that afternoon through their secure channel. "Your timing is impeccable. Congressional investigators now actively seeking documentation of program transition to Mentor. What you found could be the smoking gun. We need to move quickly." They arranged for a secure handoff of the physical documents, not at Oakwood Elementary, which they now assumed was potentially under surveillance, but at a neutral location 2 counties away. A trusted courier with experience handling sensitive materials would transport the documents directly to the Congressional Investigation Team, bypassing potential interception by intelligence agencies with a stake in keeping the connection buried. The plan was set for 3 days later, giving Olivia time to prepare the materials and establish a credible cover story for her absence. She would tell Maya they were taking a day trip to visit a specialty building supply store in the neighboring county, a plausible excuse given their ongoing renovation projects. But the universe had other plans. The next day, Olivia received an urgent call from Maya's school. Her daughter had fallen during physical education class and needed medical attention for a possible broken wrist. Rushing to the school, Olivia found Maya pale but composed, her left arm immobilized in a temporary splint provided by the school nurse. X-rays at the urgent care center confirmed a hairline fracture, requiring a cast and follow-up care. By the time they returned home, it was early evening, and Maya was exhausted from pain and the effects of mild pain medication. "I'm sorry about your arm, sweetheart," Olivia said as she helped Maya get comfortable in bed. "It's okay," Maya replied drowsily. "Now I'll have a cool cast for everyone to sign." She glanced around her room, which they had painted together in cheerful yellows and blues. "I'm glad we live here now. Our apartment was too small for when friends come visit me while I'm recovering." Olivia smiled, brushing hair from her daughter's forehead. "You're right. This place has given us room to breathe, hasn't it?" As Maya drifted to sleep, Olivia's thoughts returned to their situation. The document handoff would need to be rescheduled. Maya's condition made travel impossible for at least a few days. She would need to contact Torres and adjust their plans. But as she left Maya's room, Olivia noticed something that stopped her. Cold. The hollow section of baseboard where she had hidden the technical evolution document was slightly askew, as if it had been removed and imperfectly replaced. Heart-pounding, she carefully checked the hiding spot. The document was gone. Fighting panic, Olivia systematically searched Maya's room, careful not to disturb her sleeping daughter. Had the document simply fallen out? Had Maya discovered it while playing? But no matter where she looked, the critical evidence linking Project Schoolhouse to Operation Mentor was nowhere to be found. Retreating to the kitchen, Olivia sent an encrypted message to Torres. "Critical document missing from secure location. No signs of forced entry. Advise immediately." While waiting for a response, she reviewed their security camera footage, a precaution Catherine had insisted upon. The exterior cameras showed no unusual activity, no unknown vehicles or visitors. But when Olivia checked the interior camera that monitored their main entrance, she discovered a gap in the footage, 27 minutes missing from that afternoon, precisely during the time she had been at the urgent care center with Maya. Someone had entered their home, known exactly where to look, and taken only the most damaging document, all while bypassing their security systems. The implications were chilling. They were dealing with professionals who had resources and capabilities far beyond ordinary burglars. Torres's response was immediate and direct. "Immediate extraction required. Prepare for secure team arrival. Within 3 hours, essential items only. Tell no one." Olivia stared at the message, its meaning clear. She and Maya would need to leave Oakwood Elementary, their hard-won home, their sanctuary, their fresh start, and enter some form of protective custody or witness security program. Everything they had built over the past months would be left behind, at least temporarily. The thought was devastating. After years of housing insecurity, they had finally found stability. After countless sacrifices, they had created a home that was truly theirs. After so much uncertainty, they had established roots in a community that had embraced them. And now they would need to abandon it all because Olivia had chosen to expose the truth about government surveillance programs that had operated without accountability for decades. For a moment, doubt and regret threatened to overwhelm her. Had she made the wrong choice? Should she have simply renovated their schoolhouse and ignored the historical documents, focusing solely on providing stability for Maya rather than pursuing justice and accountability? But as she moved through their home, the home they had, created through determination, ingenuity, and countless hours of labor, Olivia found her resolve strengthening rather than weakening. This space represented not just physical shelter, but the principles she hoped to instill in Maya. that seemingly insurmountable challenges could be overcome with persistence, that unconventional solutions often led to unexpected rewards, that creating something meaningful required courage and vision. The documents she had discovered represented another kind of truth, that democratic governments were accountable to their citizens, that constitutional rights mattered even during times of national security concerns, that transparency and oversight were essential safeguards against abuses of power. Both truths were worth fighting for. Both represented values she wanted Maya to embrace. Instead of following Torres's evacuation instructions, Olivia sent a different message. Alternative approach proposed. Will not abandon property. Contact Congresswoman Diane Chen directly. Her district includes documented schoolhouse location. Request official congressional protection during testimony. Maya's safety non-negotiable. Congresswoman Chen had emerged as one of the most vocal advocates for a thorough investigation of domestic surveillance programs, consistently prioritizing constitutional rights over intelligence community objections. More importantly, she served on the Special Investigative Panel and had the authority to offer protective measures to key witnesses. Torres's response was predictably concerned. Extremely high-risk strategy. Intelligence community resources exceed congressional protection capabilities. Reconsider immediate extraction. But Olivia remained firm. Decision made. Contact Chen with evidence summary and testimony offer. Will not surrender home we've fought to create. Truth and stability both matter. Finding third path. After a tense hour of negotiation, Torres reluctantly agreed to approach Congresswoman Chen's office with Olivia's proposal. By midnight, a plan had been established. Olivia would provide sworn testimony to the Special Investigative Panel under extraordinary security protocols, including closed sessions and identity protection measures. In exchange, Chen would arrange for discreet but robust security for Olivia and Maya, allowing them to remain at Oakwood Elementary under congressional protection. The next morning, Olivia faced the most difficult conversation of her life, explaining to Maya why unmarked vehicles would now be stationed near their property and why security specialists would be accompanying them on errands and to school. Remember those papers we found in the hidden room? Olivia began gently, sitting beside Maya's bed as her daughter woke. They've turned out to be very important to some investigations happening in Washington. Maya's sleepy eyes widened. The spying program from my social studies class, it really was our school. Yes, it was, and I've been helping some journalists and investigators understand what happened here. Olivia took a deep breath. That means some people might not be happy with me for sharing that information. So we're going to have some extra security for a little while. People who will help keep us safe while I tell Congress what we found. Maya considered this with remarkable composure for a 10-year-old. Are we in danger? I don't think so, Olivia answered honestly. These are mostly very old secrets, but some people still don't want them revealed, so we're taking precautions. We have to move again, Maya asked, the fear of housing instability immediately resurfacing. No, Olivia said firmly. That's why we're accepting protection. This is our home, and we're not giving it up. We've worked too hard to create this place for ourselves. Maya nodded, determination replacing worry. Good, because I still need to paint my classroom bedroom and build that garden we planned. And my arm will be better soon. She held up her freshly casted wrist with surprising cheer. Maybe the security people can help us with the heavy lifting for renovation projects. Olivia laughed, amazed yet again by her daughter's resilience. Maybe they can. We'll have to ask. Over the next week, their lives settled into a new and unusual routine. Discreet security personnel, identified to neighbors as family friends staying for an extended visit, maintained a constant presence. Maya's school was briefed on enhanced pick-up and drop-off protocols. Their home security systems were significantly upgraded with congressional resources. Meanwhile, Olivia prepared for her testimony with Catherine's legal guidance. The technical evolution document that had been taken from their home would be a critical gap in the evidence, but the comprehensive documentation she had created of the basement facility still provided compelling proof of Project Schoolhouse's operational capabilities and evolutionary development. Most importantly, she still had the original operational manuals, surveillance logs, and subject files from the floor safe, materials that established the program's existence, scope, and constitutional violations beyond any reasonable doubt. 10 days after discovering the basement facility, Olivia testified before the Special Investigative Panel in a secure congressional facility. For 6 hours, she methodically presented the evidence she had discovered, explained the context of each document, and described the physical infrastructure of Oakwood Elementary's surveillance systems. The panel members listened with growing concern as she detailed how a public elementary school had been covertly converted into a domestic surveillance outpost, targeting political activists, environmental advocates, and ordinary citizens exercising their First Amendment rights. Based on the technical specifications in the documents you've provided, one congressman asked, what capabilities did these surveillance systems have? According to the operational manuals, Olivia replied, they could monitor telephone communications within a 20-mile radius, intercept radio transmissions, conduct directional audio surveillance of outdoor gatherings, and deploy mobile monitoring equipment for targeted operations. And this was all happening from within an elementary school, with children present, another panel member asked incredulously. Yes, the program appears to have been deliberately designed to use schools as cover, capitalizing on their status as trusted community institutions. The questioning continued, focusing on the timeline of operations, the apparent oversight mechanisms, or lack thereof, and the subjects targeted for surveillance. Throughout her testimony, Olivia maintained her composure, presenting the evidence methodically while emphasizing the constitutional implications. When asked about the missing technical evolution document, she described its contents from memory and explained the circumstances of its disappearance, information that visibly disturbed several panel members who exchanged concerned glances. Ms. Reyes, Congresswoman Chen said toward the end of the session, you've taken significant personal risks to bring this information forward. Why was that important to you? Olivia considered the question carefully. I'm a nurse practitioner by training. In healthcare, we have a saying, first, do no harm. When I discovered evidence that American citizens had been harmed by surveillance programs operating outside constitutional boundaries, I couldn't simply ignore it. Just as I wouldn't walk past a patient in distress, I couldn't walk past evidence of our democracy in distress. Her testimony concluded with a standing commitment to provide additional information as needed and a formal agreement regarding ongoing security measures for her and Maya. As she prepared to return home, Congresswoman Chen approached her privately. What you've done is extraordinary, Chen said quietly. Not just sharing the evidence, but insisting on maintaining your home and stability for your daughter while doing so. That takes a special kind of courage. It wasn't courage, so much as stubbornness, Olivia admitted. After fighting so hard for housing security, I refused to let this situation take it away from us. Chen smiled. That's exactly what courage often looks like, the stubborn refusal to accept false choices between security and truth, between personal well-being and public good. You found a third path. The Congresswoman's words stayed with Olivia during the journey home, offering reassurance that her unconventional approach, neither fleeing into witness protection nor remaining silent about what she discovered, had been the right choice for their unique circumstances. Upon returning to Oakwood Elementary, Olivia found Maya and their security detail engaged in an impromptu renovation project. Despite her casted arm, Maya was directing 2 security personnel in moving furniture, while a third helped hang curtains in the former teacher's lounge. They were converting into a family dining room. "Mom!" Maya called excitedly. "Agent Davis used to do construction before joining security work, and he showed us how to properly anchor shelves in these old plaster walls." Olivia laughed, the tension of the day dissolving at the sight of their home continuing to evolve despite the extraordinary circumstances. This was exactly why she had refused evacuation. This persistent, determined building of their life together, regardless of obstacles. That evening, as congressional testimony made national news and policy debates intensified in Washington, Olivia and Maya sat at their newly installed dining room table, planning their next renovation projects with the same enthusiasm they had shown before becoming central figures in a national security controversy. "I think we should tackle the library next," Maya suggested, sketching ideas on her tablet with her uninjured hand. "It could be amazing for sleepovers once my friends can visit again." "The library's a big project," Olivia cautioned. "But I like your thinking. Maybe we start with one section and expand gradually?" As they discussed possibilities, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude. Despite everything, the housing crisis that had started their journey, the surveillance revelations that had complicated it, the security concerns that now shaped it, they had managed to create something precious. A home defined by possibility, rather than limitation, by creation rather than fear. The congressional investigations would continue for months. The public debate about surveillance and civil liberties would intensify. The security precautions would remain necessary for the foreseeable future. But through it all, Oakwood Elementary would continue its transformation from abandoned school to beloved home, from surveillance outpost to sanctuary, from relic of government overreach to symbol of citizen empowerment. Most importantly, Maya would grow up understanding that difficult circumstances didn't dictate her future, that with persistence, creativity, and courage, seemingly insurmountable challenges could become foundations for extraordinary possibility. As they finalized their renovation plans for the coming weekend, security personnel maintaining discreet positions around their property, Olivia realized they had achieved something remarkable. They had refused the false choice between security and truth. Instead, they had forged a third path that honored both their personal needs and their civic responsibilities. In doing so, they had transformed not just an abandoned school, but the very meaning of home itself, expanding it beyond physical shelter to encompass the values, principles, and possibilities that truly sustain human flourishing, even in the most challenging circumstances. The journey ahead would continue to test their resilience and resolve. But with each renovation project completed, each security protocol navigated, each day lived fully, despite unusual constraints, they were proving that determination could transform even the most daunting challenges into opportunities for growth, purpose, and unexpected joy. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.